Hello and welcome back to Expedition Builds. You know, when it comes to lifting our Jeeps, we've got a couple big decisions to make. One is what lift are we going to run, and the other, with that lift, what shocks will we select to run. And I'm running Falcons SP2 3.3s on my build now, my 2020 JL. I've had a few people asking me my thoughts on them, and so I'm going to do a review video on this. We're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into what I'm running, how I have them set up, how I run them, and get you guys a look at that. But kind of before we get into that, you know, there's a couple things when we talk about getting a Jeep to ride the way we want it to. We've got to consider a few variables. First variable I think that we need to look at is spring rate on the lift we select, you know, and a lot of times it's not easy for us to, you know, get spring rate numbers from a manufacturer. They build their lifts, they do their springs, and it's part of a, you know, a full package. And so how do we know how a certain spring is going to ride, you know? And unless you can get in someone else's Jeep that's got that lift on it, you know, we're taking a chance, right? So we've got to go by our own research, by word of mouth. I'm running a Metal Cloak 3.5-inch Game Changer. I ran the same lift on my JK build. I also had the Falcon 3.3s on my JK and I absolutely loved them. It was a fantastic combination. My Jeep is my daily driver, so you know, this thing sees city roads. It sees you know, to work and back every day. I also wheel it, so you know, I knew early on that I was going to go with an adjustable shock because I want to be able to tune the ride and the shock characteristics to how I'm using my Jeep. All right, so back to the variables that we got to consider. I talked about spring rates, right? So that's one thing on the way your Jeep is going to ride. Another thing is going to be which shock we select, and of course the ability to tune a shock with an adjustable shock I think is a huge advantage, so I knew I was going that route. The next part of the equation on Jeep ride is going to be our tire selection. And specifically the tire load rating. So, you know, a lot of times we can't, it would be nice to run a C rating on your tires so we had a nice, you know, compliant sidewall, but those aren't always available either. So stiff sidewall is going to yield a pretty, you know, it's going to be a little bit stiffer ride. You're going to definitely feel more of that ride transferred into the Jeep. I think lastly, the last part of the equation is going to be the weight of your Jeep and how you're built, right? The more weight on it, that's going to change the way a shock is going to react. It's going to change the way a spring is going to react. So that's what we've got. So we're thinking about Jeep suspension and making your Jeep ride a certain way. Things to consider: spring rate, adjustable shocks, and what we can do with that to dial in the ride, tire selection and how stiff a sidewall we're going to run or not, as well as tire pressure, which, you know, I'll get in a video and show you some of the different things I've tried with my tire pressure and my, you know, shock settings to get the ride the way I want it. And then lastly is your build weight. You know, are you running armor? In the case of my Jeep, the build ethos for me is to try to keep it as light and as capable as possible. But of course, with every accessory I add, and you know, you're adding more weight. So anyways, that's kind of my overview on how we need to think about the way our Jeeps are going to ride and what we can do with suspension and shock tuning. So let's jump in, take a close look at my setup on my 2000 Jeep JL Recon and Falcons SP2 3.3s. For my new JL build, I considered this a clean sheet and was open to any and all suggestions. After spending a great deal of time talking with two people whose opinions I really trust at Dixie 4-Wheel Drive, both recommended I run Falcon SP2s. Before we go any further, let's take a look at what makes a Falcon shock a Falcon shock. Let's listen in on this interview I did with Dennis Wood at the Falcon facility a while back.
So we've had, you know, we've worked with shops, we've worked with other, you know, manufacturers that are branded shocks, but how did Falcon come to be? How did that start? And get these, you know, specific...
You're right. We worked with some great shock manufacturers. Right. Good stuff, you know. We just got to the point where we had our suspension. We said, guys, we need this shock to be valved a little bit different so that it can do
your
this
spring,
and that for
that
us.
kind of thing, right? Yeah.
Right.
We're
for our
tuning
specs.
rides. We're tuning.
They're like, oh god, we can't just do that. Fewer shocks for that.
Sure.
So we like, the only way we can do this is if we do our own.
Gives you guys
And
control.
I'll tell you what, that is a decision. It's like
Not taken lightly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
because as you guys can see, this in terms of capital investment is massive. What's going on here at Terraflex?
Three years, 4 years, I guess a year at R&D, developing, getting
we're
it all
at about
together.
the 4-year mark already.
And then 3 years of actually producing.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's happened, but the thing is once we finally started doing our own, well, like for example, this bench right here. What this is it's a portable tuning tray, so we can throw it in the trailer. They've got everything they need to do shock tuning. We'll go on site.
We could take this out on the trail or on site and go.
Yeah, we have a trailer. We throw it in, and absolutely.
Wow, I understand.
So
fantastic.
That is there. It's got everything there. So we actually did that. We went down and spent 2 or 3 weeks just in once they got it dialed close, we went and fine-tuned it, and just spent a week on site.
You had a week of shock tuning.
Just to fine-tune the last little bit, because it took a month before that. So
how many variations of in this week are you?
You'd pull
taking
it
the
in.
shock off.
We
try this.
We put a set of our baseline shock. This is what we have been using. We like this. We don't like that. What do we do to change it?
Right.
And so we put those on. We drive it. We have a little track. We do this. We do this with it. 3 different areas. Bring it back, and then we throw on a set of Falcons. We go out and make, okay, that totally fixed the whoop thing. We're not bottoming anymore. But it made it a little harsh on the highway ride on the way back.
Let's work on that.
And then one of the things that just amazed me, I couldn't believe how much difference tuning makes in every aspect of how your vehicle rides.
Talk to me about that.
So,
what'd you find?
We had a little section where it was just a washboard road where we would just make a turn. And one tune, you could make that turn and you were sliding off the road at 5 or 10 miles an hour.
Just
the next one, I could hit that at 15 or 20 and it just stayed on the road. It was just an eye-opener to me. So
it's all shock tuning.
Shock tuning.
Yeah.
It just kept it on the ground.
Yeah.
So that balance of getting rid of that JK or JL highway sway where you whip the wheel and they just rock. It's a whole different
wagging tail.
Yeah, it's a whole different philosophy on tuning. It's more like a sports car tune that we do. A lot of rebound in them. It gets rid of that stuff. So that's why people put them on and go, oh my gosh, I feel it.
Yeah, I run your 3.3s, and an ability for me as an end user to tune for the trail. I live in Chicago, and we come out to Moab, I'll set them on firm for the interstate. Locks everything down really nice, controls that body movement. It's been huge, but tell me how you got to corner specific on the Wrangler, because I found that kind of fascinating.
Yeah,
it's not
we wanted to go to a bigger body on it.
Okay.
So the larger body puts it right up against the frame. So that's when we did that offset stud.
Sure.
So we moved it out.
Sure.
So that made it so it had to be left, right. And also the piggyback, going with a reservoir, like it's kind of a motorsports thing. They do them on side-by-sides and stuff. So we brought that into the Jeep market. And what that does is, number one, it gets rid of all those leak points in the hose. And the hose has like a size of a pencil lead hole in it. And we're actually using a larger passageway that allows the oil to go into that reservoir more. So it's lower pressure, and we're able to tune it easier. It just keeps heat from building up and all that. So that
it works well.
But the most important thing is they just look awesome.
That's true.
They just look so good.
As you can see in the previous clip, the engineers at Falcon spent a lot of time fine-tuning the Falcon shocks to the specifics of our Jeeps. Now let's have a quick look behind the scenes as we tour the facility, so you can see the new Falcon shocks being put together. Aside from the manufacturing, which is state-of-the-art, there is a hand-built component to these as well. Falcon shocks are designed, engineered, and manufactured at their state-of-the-art facility in West Jordan, Utah. Being close to some of the best trails in the world for jeeping and off-road certainly has its advantages in tuning these shocks. Alright, it's time to get these out of the box and installed on my Jeep. The instructions are very good. and each set comes with a signed card of the techs who built your shocks. Pretty cool. Now let's take a quick look at a feature unique to Falcon shocks, the SP mode. And here's a quick demo on how to access the soft and performance modes of the SP2. With the bottom of the shock unbolted, simply rotate the shock 360 degrees counterclockwise to access soft mode, and conversely 360 degrees clockwise to access performance mode. The SP2 feature allows another layer of adjustability. I'm running mine on the soft setting because my build is relatively light, but if you're a heavy build, maybe running 1-ton axles, the performance feature might be just right for you. On my 2020 Recon, I'm running a Metal Cloak 3.5-inch Game Changer lift. This lift nets me out about 4¼ inches of lift overall. Based on my lift specs, I'm running Falcon's 2 to 4.5-inch shock length. This will allow me to get the most articulation out of my Metal Cloak lift. And here's a look at the articulation we were able to achieve with my setup. As you can see, we're able to do a full stuff front and rear, and the droop isn't too bad either. Super happy with the way this turned out. This is on 3 inches of bump stop. And here you can see just how easy it is to dial your Falcon shocks in. There's 3 main settings, 1, 2, and 3, soft to firm. The middle setting 2 allows 8 microfine adjustments. This is perfect for allowing you to dial in your suspension just the way you like it. Okay, final thoughts. I think the key here is adjustability, and it takes a little while and experimentation to figure out what works best with your build. For daily driving and on the street, I find I run my Falcons at setting 2, the medium setting, with 4 on the microdial. This works best with my 37-inch Nittos inflated to right around 30 to 32 pounds. I really appreciate how you can feel every little adjustment on the shock from the driver's seat. Crank up that dial and you're going to feel it. There's no fluff here. It really works. All right, let's take a look at what I'm doing off-road. When I'm out in Moab or Sand Hollow, for instance, I will run mine on full soft. My thinking here is I like the suspension to be able to articulate very smoothly over the obstacles. I'm also running a sway bar disconnect, as well as airing down to typically between 8 to 10 pounds with my bead locks. This combination has worked great for me on the trails. However, I also know the owner of a well-built Jeep who likes to dial his up to full firm when he's off-roading. Mark tends to hit it pretty hard, and I think this just illustrates 2 different philosophies on how to get the same job done. On any high-speed interstate, I'll set the shocks to firm. This allows very little body motion and allows great high-speed stability, which is very helpful with any crosswinds. Alright, so here's where I'm at with the Falcon SP2 3.3s on my JL build. I love these shocks. Adjustability, as I mentioned, is a key to getting your suspension set up to run the way you like it. I like the fact that every click on the dial on the Falcon I can feel from the driver's seat. What I found with the Falcon SP2s is that as you dial them up more firm, what you see is the ride and that bounce that's inherent in Jeeps with track bars, and the body sway that goes with that is arrested very quickly. So the firmer you get, the more quickly these shocks will settle the Jeep. I think it's what Dennis was referring to when he said the shocks have a little bit more of a performance tune to them. I would definitely agree. They're definitely not a cush, soft Cadillac riding shock. I would definitely put them more on the performance spectrum. I love the feedback. I love the way they keep the Jeep super flat. The corners, like I said, body motion is arrested very quickly with my setup. All around, I absolutely love these things. I hope you've enjoyed this in-depth look at the Falcon SP2 3.3s. They've been a great asset to my Jeep, and I would definitely recommend them to anybody looking for a high quality shock packed with a lot of innovation. Terraflex did some very cool things when they created this new line of shocks for our Jeeps, and addressed a lot of the issues that, you know, I think were not really addressed by other manufacturers. So hats off to them for that. I found the quality to be excellent. Like I said, I ran them on my previous build. I'm loving them on my JL. They are definitely more of a, what I'm going to call, performance tune. They give excellent feedback. They will arrest the ride on your Jeep very quickly, so there's a lot of control with these. It's not a sloppy ride, it's not real loose, and it's not real cush either. So, but I don't want any of those aspects on my Jeep. I want something that's a little more performance oriented. I don't like a lot of body movement. I want it nailed down, and I want good feedback, and the SP2s have been all that for me. So if you're looking for a quality shock, maybe take a look at these SP2s. They might be right for your build.